Okay, everyone, we're going to give an overview of our fam trip in December to the Galapagos with the Klein Legend ship. So today's modules, this will be part one of two. We'll kind of go over like kind of what the shipping, well, I guess all the logistics related to the trip and kind of like describing a little bit about what the ship is actually like. So me and Maribel will be presenting to you today. Maribel?
Thank you. So just to start with, we want to tell you how the arrival was, the pickups, and the logistic. So basically, we were divided pretty much. Maricela and I arrived into Quito, and Monique was staying in Guayaquil. So when I contacted Klein, they gave us, for example, you can see here the list of hotels that the shuttle from Klein passes by. So we were staying in a different hotel, which was Selena, in the north part of the city, but they included the transfer for us because there weren't many passengers. It was a whole bus just for the two of us, and yeah, and they give it was somebody it was somebody there to explain to us. To give us actually the tickets, the boarding passes, the stickers we'll show you later, and the entrances for the Galapagos. The pickup time from Quito is around this time, 4:15 or so, because the flight is departing early. Instead of Guayaquil, from Monique, because the flight, of course, departs Quito, arrives into Guayaquil always, and stays there for an hour or so. And so the pickup time is different, and the shuttle passes by these other hotels in Guayaquil. So we took the yeah. Those were our friends. This is the people from the from the cruise. So I wanted to point here that they give you these stickers, so you put it in your clothes, so you don't have to be looking around, so they know who you are and they are gonna guide you easily. So the idea is just to wear that until you arrive into the cruise ship. So the flights, actually, we should be before that. The flights are always set up unless somebody else or somebody wants to get another flight, which is $90 extra to pay to Klein because you're not using their flights. So I guess they have an agreement with the airline to have a certain amount of seats on the plane always. So that's why the price doesn't change. It's always for $50, I believe. So that doesn't change. So basically, you take off from Quito and you arrive into Guayaquil. It says only 40 hours, the stop, but it's
Minutes.
sorry. Sorry, yeah, but sorry, minutes.
30 hours.
For 40 minutes, but it's over an hour or even an hour and a half that I felt that we were waiting, and then you just take off from Guayaquil and arrive into Baltra Islands by 9:20 a.m. The flight out is also the same. You take off from Baltra by 10, arrive to Guayaquil, stop over, wait for other passengers to board, and take off again to arrive into Quito before 3 p.m. So this is kind of the reception. When we arrived, we took this bus. It was like 15-20 minutes around.
Even less, yeah.
I think so. To the place that we had to take a little boat and go to the ship, the cruise ship. So this is like a waiting area, kind of. You have a little drinks and things like that if you like. And then you take the boat, and there is us. Yeah, you take the The great thing about this is that in the end they give you a video of the whole thing, and you think that they are recording you for security reasons because you're thinking maybe they I don't know, just jump on the water or something happens, but they're just making a video or recording you to give you a video in the end for your experience. So it was pretty nice. So yeah, it takes what 10 minutes to get there, maybe less.
Yeah.
And that's how the ship looks like. Inside the boat, in the middle, the small picture is the reception area. It's when you actually board the ship. They are waiting you for with welcome drinks, and up in the bar area, they do like a little ceremony for everyone, or everyone welcomes you. The first guy, the tall guy, is our guide, and the other two also are guides, and the rest are the crew members.
So just to give you some details about the ship itself. So again, it's a pretty huge boat. It's about 300 feet long. It was recently refurbished in 2017. But I can't recall what was the original date that it was constructed, but I do remember it's been around for some time. But I think the refurbishment did a very good job. So I would say most things look quite modern on it right now. The ship has a capacity for 100 guests. And also something I had no idea actually how many staff were working on there, but apparently it's 60. So a lot of them are acting kind of like behind the scenes, but you almost don't notice them, kind of like the fact that they're like all around you. The ship has 3 main decks and 1 upper deck, so I'll just kind of go into more detail about the facilities you can find on each level. And something that I found, it could be a little bit disorienting, like when you first arrive and you're kind of figuring out where to go around the ship. But they kind of, give each area a designated name. They give you like a briefing kind of at the beginning to sort of help you navigate about like kind of where to find what. So that was super helpful upon arrival. There is just one main set of stairs within the middle of the ship to kind of go up and down the decks. So in terms of accessibility, it doesn't seem like very ideal if you're not fully able as a passenger, if you were to kind of take this option basically. And then just like a tip, I think your clients will get used to it by just something that I personally had to think about in order to make your activities on time. If your room is located on one of the top decks, basically all disembarkation happens from one of the bottom decks. So you're kind of always moving back and forth between your room or between another area and kind of moving around. So just like a handy tip is to kind of make sure to give yourself enough time before the start of any activities so you can make it to each one on time. So this again is another picture of kind of the boarding area. So when you arrive, you'll kind of be using this area basically to embark and disembark from the ship. So it's kind of where you'll meet up with your group basically for each before the beginning of each activity. This is also a level that has the main restaurant. So there's only one main restaurant on board where you have all your meals. And then I'd say other facilities that they had available, they have a full auditorium, but I think you'll very rarely kind of go there, and that's mostly used for extensive briefings. And this is also the area where they house the snorkeling rooms. So that's where you'll pick up your gear, such as wetsuits and other things you'll need for your kind of snorkeling or kind of other excursions. So they also have some cabins on this level, but these are all kind of the standard cabins that have only the porthole windows, if they have any windows at all. So I would say this is probably the level you ideally don't want to put your packs on if you can avoid it, because it's the rooms tend to be a little bit smaller here as well, which Maribel will go into more detail about. But I think the tricky thing is that there's important facilities in all levels. So a lot of briefings happen on the top level, for example. So they'll kind of call you to go up there at the same time. So there's no perfect solution for it. This is known as the earth deck, so it's kind of in the middle of the ship, and it's also where the front kind of desk reception is, which is open 24/7. I'd say they have a lot of other like nice facilities, but you won't really find that you'll be using them all the time. They have the jacuzzi, like a fitness center, like a science corner where you can watch like nature DVDs and find books and stuff. But like realistically, with how busy your schedule is, you don't really find like you have time to necessarily like enjoy all these like extra facilities. They also have like a kids center room, which I guess would be helpful if you do have young children, as they have some games and books and sort of a secluded area. And they also have an in-ship boutique, so they have like a lot of like cute branded gear there, where you could get like a turtle T-shirt or like a really expensive pillow, for example.
Yes.
And then I think they also have more suites here. They have more varieties of suites, but again, nothing in the middle deck or the below deck offers anything with balconies.
Which did you all stay?
We stayed in the sky deck. So this is kind of, for me, what I think is the main deck of the ship. That's also the most active social area, especially when you have downtime. It's where they have the biggest lounge. They have the bar there. They have a lot of comfortable couches. And that's kind of where you'll have the majority of your briefings with your guide and with your team. This also has a mini dip pool on the outside deck. It has that bar and also an outside bar by the pool. It has a tea and coffee station, so you could go there and kind of refill on free snacks, which is nice. And again, several lounge spaces. Here is where I thought like all of the nicest rooms were. So you have the larger suite rooms, and they all come with balconies, which is very nice. And that's where we stayed.
Yeah.
And I think another thing to mention is like they also only had 2 water refill stations. So there's one on this deck, and it'll be kind of like a standard kind of like, what do you call those? It's almost like being in grade school again, where you kind of refill your like water bottle in a tap. So I'm not really sure. I wasn't really pleased that they only had 2 of these stations on the whole ship, but it is at the same time very handy, so you could refill water at any time. The moon deck is just kind of like the top sort of patio area on the top of the ship. It's probably going to be the least used section. I think we had one lunchtime barbecue there when we were during our itinerary, but basically all other meals are going to be eaten in a restaurant. There's some photos of us, so you can see the pool is huge, and you could basically Olympic size. Oh, it's really more like a dip pool to kind of cool off your feet. That's when we were enjoying a beer in between all the activities. So that's an example of a very expensive pillow.
Yeah, super expensive, but it's pretty.
Yeah.
We were really spoiled when we were there because we were expecting to have perhaps this kind of rooms, and maybe we're thinking Maricela and I would share the room, but the ship wasn't 100% full. It was probably 30 people around out of 100, so there was space for us to have one room each. So this is the standard rooms. We were saying that they are small. There are 7 cabins of this type. You don't have much view. They don't open. Escotilla, how do you say escotilla? Sorry.
You can't open the windows, basically. They're like the standard porthole windows.
Okay, you can do, it's not that big, so as you can see, it's a very standard and narrow area. Then we have the junior suite, which there are 24 of them. It's more space. Again, you don't have a balcony, but you do have a nice view. Of course, it's better if your clients could invest in this type of room and up, no the standard ones. And they're in the same.
These beds,
Yes.
they're like, it's like twin put together. Right?
Yes, they could put it. Yes.
In any room.
Yes, and they tell you there that there could be 3 people, 2 people in each cabin. Let you know that.
One bed.
Sorry,
No.
only one, but there is one like a couch thing that you could use it for children. Yeah. Uh, this is the one we had. This is the Legend Balcony suite. This is actually Monique's pictures, but we all had the same type of room. We had included the little book under the rope. You can see with a lot of Galapagos pictures. They're beautiful. A little bag so you could take that on excursions. The bottled water like this. This is actually Alice. Mine is a liter. This is a little bigger. Um, One thing that I really liked is that the shower has timer, I would say. So you press like in regular bathrooms and you just have 40 seconds of water. So you have to do it fast, and they tell you it's because they want to save water and things like that. So it's kind of weird. They clean your stuff all the time. You just need to leave your towels on the floor. They will change it 3 times per day. And yeah, it was beautiful. They have AC. You can sit outside after the excursions, after long days of excursion. You can just sit outside. It's just, I think, worth it investing more in this type of rooms than in the others. About the television, I would say they don't have a regular cable, but they do have set of programs that you can, entertainment is that you could check even documentaries about Galapagos. I watched one movie in 3 nights because we were so tired that we were sleeping right after we got to bed, and yeah, I think it's enough for the 4-day activities. I think is the beds are very comfortable. The only thing we struggled, I think everybody, was the ship moving so much the first night that we couldn't sleep that much. The second we slept because we were super tired, and the third night it was the worst. It moved very very much. But yeah.
Like that debate. Is that like normal? Is it quite like the seas change a lot?
Uh,
I guess
For
the
what
time of
they
year-
said, there was some phenomenon happening those days in the water, but I don't know.
And the time of year, I think, as well.
Probably,
Changes.
yeah. But after the second night, you kind of get used to it, so you're not moving so much. And the funny thing is, when we went back to Quito, we felt that we were moving, the 3 of us. So, yeah, still moving. So that's the our room, but of course shown on the on the brochure. It looks very nice. Of course, kids can be accommodated here easily. You don't see the couch, but they do have a sofa. And this is the Legend Balcony suite, which we couldn't see because a guy from our group was staying there. So of course this is bigger, nicer, and is the only one on the ship. Then it's up there. It's very private. It's beautiful. Probably, yeah.
Matthew, when I was there, I also moved a lot. So I think it's actually kind of common.
Probably they told us because we were crossing the equatorial line, but I don't. Yeah.
Did many people, like, was there many people being seasick?
I was a little when we first went in, but then I got used to it.
So like, after the first day.
Yeah.
sort of,
And when we told people that it moved so much, they were surprised because this is the biggest ship around. The others, I just can't imagine how bad it is. But yeah.
That's something very important to take into consideration. The clients don't have too much boat experience and they're insisting on a smaller yacht. And if this huge ship moves, the small one is kind of moves a lot more. And I can tell because I visited the Coral 1 and Coral 2, and it was parked. It was parking like it was moved a lot. So like, well, okay, maybe smaller yacht is not necessarily that, not better. Really. December.
We did December trip.
Actually, there's one guy in our family trip group. I think he was maybe almost 7 years old, and he had an accident. He was in his room and boat moved. And yeah, there's sometimes where you kind of fall and catch your guy or something. So he fell and actually hit his arm, and he couldn't do anything to it. He was out for the
Something I wanted to tell you also is that each room is equipped with all your life saving jackets. So in our room there was three. Of course, that room is for three people. And the first night they call you and give you a training, let's say, about if anything happens. They let you know the procedures. You never jump, so you have to wait and those kind of things. There are enough boats for everyone, so we were thinking about Titanic.
Yeah.
and yeah, so they give you every as much information as possible, so you are aware in case of an emergency of anything happens. So we thought it was pretty well organized. Also, one little thing is that they do have shampoo, soap, and a little cream for yourself on board, so you don't really have to take anything if you're just doing the cruise ship.
Maribel, is there any sorry, I'm asking the same
That's okay.
question. Is there any restrictions on they use the sun cream that doesn't harm?
We were never told about that. The only thing is that they made sure we carry this all the time, so we didn't have any plastic things with us. That's why we had the refilling stations, as Monique was saying, in two areas of the boat. But besides that, they explain to you during the excursions how, let's say, kind of virgin the whole area is. One thing I didn't mention is that during the flight, they make you even sign papers and everything, like a legal thing that you're not carrying anything that it doesn't, or that it could affect even to the islands.
Is there no smoking, for example?
I haven't seen any smoking thing at all. I think there were, on the boat I think you could in some areas, but after that nothing. And it caught our attention that they ask you if you have trekking shoes, that you needed to show them and give it to them in case your shoes was carrying something that it wasn't going to be. So they're very protective. They do grow their own food, their own animals to eat. They are very, very careful with this. The regulation is super extreme. We didn't think it was that strict, but it is. So they do take care of their own things.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just gonna tell you a little bit about my impression of the services. So I mentioned approximately 60 staff on board. So that includes the full team of guides. So we had 3 different groups kind of in our ship. So I think that was maybe about, did you say 10 people per group on average?
Yeah.
So they had a guide basically assigned to each group. So during that briefing, you'll be introduced to them. And in our next module, Maricela will kind of tell you about how the activities are kind of divided amongst each group. There's a full housekeeping staff. So as Maribel was saying, our room was always kind of kept very clean and spotless. They were kind of coming in, I think, a few times during the day to kind of spot check everything, refill toilet paper, kind of, I think, even do a turn down service in the evening. There's always somebody available in the front desk reception 24/7. Obviously, you have the full captain and crew. You also have the wait staff and people at the restaurant and bar, and there's also a doctor and nurse on board as well. And I think my impression of everyone is super friendly service. They were helpful. A lot of times they were just very enthusiastic staff, considering they probably have to repeat the same activities. I don't know how many times per month they have to join in with karaoke with all the people on board, and kind of it must be Groundhog Day, just repeating that all the time with everyone. But they're excellent on multitasking. Sometimes the wait staff are kind of called to do something else on the ship. So you kind of get to know everyone quite well. I would say there's a good level of English amongst all the client-facing staff, but again, there's so many staff that are operating kind of behind the scenes, for example, housekeeping or kind of in the kitchen. So you have very little interaction with them, but I would say for the people we interacted with on a daily basis, the level of English was very good. And then just some things to kind of keep in mind, kind of Uh, it's like, I guess when we went in the month of December, I found that it was like super hot outside in the middle of the day, not unlike the temperatures we're experiencing now, and also while you're doing the activities. But they kind of keep the AC on pretty strong throughout the boat, and I also found it was a little bit chilly at nighttime. And it's also nice that all the cabins are equipped with AC, but I do think it was a very nice thing to have the balcony rooms, just because that allows you to get fresh air. Like none of the other rooms have windows that you can actually open so you could control the room temperature. I think you would always just have to keep the AC or keep adjusting it. So it's just nice to kind of be able to like slide open the balcony door and be able to get at least some like fresh air that way. Um, Maribel already mentioned a lot about the movement, so that's what I guess my impression of it is that it just, for me, it was very considerable when it was in motion, when the boat was transitioning to a new island. So this was usually in the middle of the night, and for me, it impacted my sleep a lot. I didn't feel like dizzy or nauseous, but it's just like you're constantly aware that you're like being moved around a lot. Maybe also a question that might come up is kind of dress code. So it gets mostly informal. I did notice like some packs decided to dress up more formally for dinner, but I do not think that's necessary at all. And like you don't have to bring your gown to the dining room or anything like that. And like any sort of resort wear will be perfectly reasonable or active wear. And just something I wanted to note about scheduling, like this was a very busy schedule to kind of accommodate all the activities that were on board and off board, like back to back. We had early wake up calls every day. It was never later than 7 a.m. I think the latest one might have been between 6:30 and 7 a.m. You also get reminders of the schedule constantly. So they have like an in-ship intercom. So you're always hearing somebody announcing like, oh, this group is like must kind of go down to the disembarkation area so you could do your next activity. Or now it's breakfast time, now it's lunch time, everyone go to the restaurant. So it does feel like everything is a little bit timed, and that kind of leaves only a little bit of room in between for relaxation. There are like meals were always timed and almost at the same hour every day, and you kind of just get one full hour block for each meal. So breakfast being between 6 and 7 a.m., lunch was always around 1 p.m., and dinner was about 7 p.m. So you don't get much flexibility kind of in between that. So I thought for me, like, I found this to be an exhausting itinerary, and it's not even the longest one. It was a 4-day, 3-night one. So I'm just thinking about keep that in mind when your packs are doing Peru before or after this destination. That's a lot to pack in. I had a week break in between this and my trip to Chile, and I still was just really tired after that. It felt like a lot to kind of pack in a small amount of time. Just a quick note about the food. So breakfast was always served buffet style. So there was always plenty of hot and cold options, plus an omelet station. Lunch and dinner can be served either as a buffet or a la carte, so that's where you're able to pick things off the menu. I didn't really see that there were too many veggie options available. Like they just seem to have the standard, like a salad bar sort of thing or a soup. But I wouldn't say like they kind of went out of their way to kind of offer anything like creative for any veggie eaters. Um, and then I think just the other non-standard meal is that a nice thing that they did was kind of organize an outdoor barbecue for everyone for one lunchtime. And then overall, I would say the food is kind of good to above average, and I think for cruise standards, it's excellent. 'Cause I really was surprised that they had things like a lot of fresh fruit every day and fresh vegetables every day, and I was wondering like how much they actually have to pre-pack on this ship beforehand, and how that stays in like good quality over that amount of time. But actually, like everything we ate was like very good. There's also some extras, like things that you might have to kind of keep in mind. Wi-Fi was very pricey. Right now, I can't remember off the top of my head how much they would charge. I want to say it was just something ridiculous per day, but it's really not worth it. The signal, they gave it to us for free to test out, but the signal was so weak. It was going in and out. It wasn't really reliable. Maybe for sending an occasional WhatsApp message, but apart from that, for browsing, it just really wasn't very good. So I wouldn't even recommend your packs to kind of
Just in
even.
the common area.
Yeah. Right. That's
75 per day. And
that's
and only
ridiculous.
one cycle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in some funds, depending on what's your fund, I wasn't able to get connected until the last night, so it wasn't really something I've used.
Frustrating.
Yeah. Just also keep in mind that like alcoholic drinks are an extra. I mean, you get plenty of non-alcoholic drinks during your meal times, but if you want a glass of wine or a cocktail, just kind of keep in mind that those will be extra costs. Also, like a wetsuit had another, so that was about $70 to rent for, and that's really for cold water snorkeling. So again, when we speak more about the activities, we go into more detail, but generally, there were a couple of occasions where we were entering much colder water, so I would say that's actually highly advisable, but just to give your pets a heads up, that will be an additional cost to be able to rent one. The nice thing that was free though is that they did have like things like cookies and coffee and tea available in the lounge for free all day. So in terms of payment for all these extra costs, it can be taken in card during the checkout. But I would say it's still advisable to bring cash, especially for tipping on board staff and guides. And these are collected via envelopes while you're doing the checkout. So I know everyone always asks about like how much should I tip. Again, I would still emphasize it's like at your discretion, and that tips are left anonymous. You don't have to write down your name or which group you're in if you don't want to. But I guess it would be nice if you wanted to be directed to your guide. And the suggestion was approximately $30 per day for guides and housekeeping wait staff. So if I remember correctly, it was $20 for the staff, and then per day, and then $10 per day for the guides.
Mm-hmm.
All of that's gonna vary.
Yeah.
You can either leave it in your room or give it to the front desk. They have like a box.
Yeah, like a locked box. So. So just to kind of emphasize what things I think are really important and think about when you're packing. I know a lot of this will seem obvious, but I think like these are just the essential items, and all the other stuff is just more like extra. Like in terms of having like a swimsuit, I think you might think to bring one, but I actually find having two to change between like excursions was really helpful, because sometimes you have like back to back like wet excursions, or you might kind of go snorkeling 2 days in a row. So just to have something dry as a backup available was very useful. I would say like having sandals that are like water resistant is very handy. So I don't know, maybe more of those like athletic sandals with Velcro, so that way you could get on and off the boat quite easily, especially for wet landings if you don't mind them getting a bit wet. And those are really useful to have. Flip-flops are just helpful for kind of walking around the boat, and kind of in between activities or meal times, for example. I would say like hiking boots are not necessary. I guess it's just more like making sure you have sturdy sneakers, and if you don't mind kind of getting like some sand or a little bit of dirt on them, it should be fine. Sun protection is definitely very crucial. It was very hot in the middle of the day. There's no real like protection in the islands, for example, when you're walking around. So having a hat, sunblock, and sunscreen is key. And I would say just you don't need to wear anything fancy. So we had some people in our group who had like wearing skirts to go on excursions, but then you saw them, they were like having issues getting on and off the dinghy boats. And so it just really wasn't practical. So you'll be fine just kind of wearing the like active, comfortable clothing, just something you don't mind getting sweaty in, and to kind of occasionally protect you from some bug bites. And then I think it's useful if you want to kind of like carry things like your camera or water bottle, to have like a waterproof bag, like something hands-free again is useful, because we're kind of like getting on and off the small boats every time. And then just like a windbreaker or a light sweater for the evenings. I wouldn't say it gets freezing, but just really something to kind of cover your shoulder and arms is helpful. And really, like it kind of lines up with everything that's in our current infographic. I really couldn't say I would make any additions or changes. So I think you guys could continue using that in good faith. And that's about it. So again, the next module will cover kind of the activities that we did and everything happening off board. Any questions? Yeah.
Did you absolutely feel like the cost difference Like, did you go on the balcony? You spend a lot of time.
Not on the balcony. I just like having the open window.
I
to
did,
catch-
and I took a bunch of pictures. I was just staring to the sky because it was clear. So yeah, if you like to do that, yeah.
What is the price difference? Retail.
It's like $1,000.
I mean, if you don't mind not having the windows, but it was nice, like going outside to the balcony, like seeing the stars at night, or getting the sun rise in the morning.
I-
Like, it's definitely great, like, standard to, like, in your suite, like, having a window. Sure, that was
I guess if your PAX doesn't mind, like maybe they'll just spend less time in their room and more time in the open, like air lounges, and they'll just kind of use their room to sleep and shower and stuff. And that's about it.
And yeah, keep in mind also, sorry, that the schedule, as Monique was saying, is really on time. So you have activities,
Right.
meals,
That's something
and
you
other
don't really have
activities.
time
Yeah, so you don't really take a nap for the full 2 hours.
It's
or so.
taking
So-
like power naps for like 15
Yeah.
minutes or 20 minutes, and then it's
Yeah,
like
and you
an
have
intro.
the voice man, hey, Cormoranes, it was a group, yeah, you need to be at 15 minutes at the boarding area. Okay, and when it was 3 o'clock, Cormoranes, we're waiting for you, so
Yeah.
let's go down.
So you have an extra $1,000.
Like our prices are based on 3-star and standard, 4-star and standard plus, and 5 and 3 and 3, like standard's a bigger 3-star and standard plus is a bigger 4-star, and so it up.
That's a good question.
What was the question?
Like if it's like how would you kind of divide up the cabin types amongst 3, 4, and 5-star? I think I hadn't really thought of that before. I always thought like, oh, just kind of show them all options. Obviously, that's not practical.
Their module has a standard, and there's like the website price is also for the rest of that, and then standard plus before.
I guess we would go with what the module is, but always just kind of use that opportunity to upsell. Just remind them like that there are other options available, and it maybe will cost more, but just kind of explaining the pros and cons of each type in that case.
Also, the standard ones are in the middle, can be the ones without a window, so you can step in the middle and not have anything to see, just the roof.
Yeah.
The very last one, not in the middle, and yeah, front. So if they don't, like even if they don't mind a little bit, just to have a view right there. Because like some of the standard rooms don't have the very, because it's like in the bottom part, it's like the hallway, it kind of rounds like that. So in the middle, they also have a couple of rooms.
Was there any, I know you said the Wi-Fi was really expensive, so was there any like computing views or you need to get hold of someone?
There was one business center
Yeah.
computer, but yeah, it's not located near the rooms. You would have to kind of go down a couple levels, I think to the middle level of the ship where they had a single one.
I think for emergency, they use radio.
Yeah.
We have that like insurance cover, just know that during Galapagos, like travel insurance is mandatory. You still use like that, or maybe that's not.
I think maybe we could soften the tone and not say it's mandatory. I think it's just very helpful, but we didn't have anyone checking our insurance when we arrived at the airport or anything.
Because it's not
So
Galapagos, it's Ecuador. It's not just Galapagos. So it would have happened when they entered into the border of Ecuador.
Probably, yeah.
We don't need that.
But if you didn't have anything, then I think I thought I heard also that they were doing like.
Yeah,
it's never been 100% confirmed that it was ever in place to start with. I do feel like even if you don't send them that strong warning, I do think for this type of excursion, like just because of the cost and kind of all the activities that you're doing, you should strongly advise your clients to have insurance.
were there any children on the union cruise?
Children?
or-
Yes, one.
Ariel.
My friend.
Ariel.
It was a 7-year-old kid.
Very curious.
Yeah, very curious. He was in a group. His mom actually works for Klein in the finances area, but of course we don't really talk to her that much.
But for
Suitable
the
for the 7-year-old.
what?
Was it suitable for the 7-year-old?
Yeah, he was
We did a
fine.
snorkel together.
Yeah.
So we were fine.
Anybody that you thought like was less able, like older pets or anything?
Yeah.
That, let's
There
say
were a few that would opt out of, again, like Marcia will kind of go into that more in the activities module, but yeah, like there's definitely activities that are better suited for more active, able people. So.
I was going to ask, like, can you opt out of things? If maybe they said 15 minutes you need to be there, and you just thought,
Yeah,
okay,
you'd be like, no, don't feel like it. You could
Yeah.
just chill in your room or
There is
at the
actually
bar.
a computer. Maricelo just reminded me of that. That once you board, you need to check that you went in, and and you need to sign up for the next activity, things like that. So they are, since there are 100 people, of course it's difficult to know who is on board and who isn't. So they track that. But since we were such a small group, we were kind of relaxed in that in that part. They took care of us and recognized us and checked in once we were on the boat. Yes. Okay, thank you everyone.